Hello everyone. Let's talk today about something very important when studying a foreign language: building confidence, uh, so you can speak the language fluently. The thing is, uh, of course, it's important to learn vocabulary. Of course, it's important to learn grammar and all that. But as an English teacher myself, what I find most challenging about learning another language, what I see my students, what I saw in myself when I was learning, is to build confidence and believe in yourself to talk the language you're learning. Because we have examples like my wife, she has a student, and once she was talking to her and saying, "Nah," she was already in an advanced book, in the advanced part of the course, learning some advanced vocabulary and such. And she was saying, "No, I can understand you. I can understand the movie. I can understand the movies. I can understand everything. But if I go there, I can talk because when I try to talk, I can speak I can speak fast. Uh, I try to remember the translation and such." And then she told her, "No, you can. You have to believe in yourself." "No, no, I can't." And then this student traveled to another country, and she was in the taxi and said, "Well, let's talk to the taxi driver. Why not?" And then she started talking with the taxi driver, and she did it because she tried, you know. And that's the thing. Uh, some people they're always in this comfort zone, especially if your English teacher, for example, is a person from your home country, a person that you know that can speak your mother tongue, in this case Portuguese here in Brazil. And then sometimes the students they use this in their advantage, although it's not an advantage, uh, to when they have any doubts they just switch to the mother tongue, like here they switch to Portuguese. It's like it's interesting, like I ask questions to my students, if even advanced questions like in the advanced books, complicated questions about opinions, controversial opinions sometimes, like, "Oh, do you think it's okay to be a vegan person? What do you think about a gay couple adopting kids?" This controversial stuff. And I ask them, "Why? Explain why you think like this." And they explain it because I'm holding a book in my hands and it's part of the content, it's part of the subject, it's part of the class. But let's say I ask the same question without the book, like I meet this person at a restaurant and I ask exactly the same question in a very informal way. That person won't be able to answer. The person will understand me and will answer me in Portuguese, you know. So it's clear that that's psychological, you know. It's some psychological stuff, because how can you answer the same question just because you are in class? Like some students, they are when they are about to finish the course, or when they have already finished it, they they come and ask, "Oh, so don't you guys have conversation classes? I've studied grammar, I studied the vocabulary, I studied phrasal verbs and all that stuff. I can understand the movies, I can understand the movie without subtitles even, but I need conversation classes." And then I tell them, "You don't need conversation classes are good, but why do you need a specific situation to talk in English? Like, can't we talk in English now, here and now? Do we have to be in a classroom to speak English? Do you need to be holding a book? Do you need an excuse, a justification to speak English?" That's a big problem. It happens often with adults, especially. I think I'm going to make a video specifically about this, about teaching adults and teaching teenagers, teach them English or any other language, for that matter. At least I don't know all the languages in the world, but I imagine some things are similar. Teaching English as a foreign language, and that's interesting. I call it the curse. I call it the large country's curse. Brazil is a very large country, So except for the people who live near the border, the the border with our neighbor countries, most of them speak Spanish. Uh, they don't uh, they don't see English as something useful. Most of them think about it like that distant thing, like, oh yes, when I get the money to travel abroad, I will use my English. Uh, so I see English as my second language. Even though I don't live in a speaking English country, for it is about myself. I see English as my second language, not as a foreign language. And lots of students, they have a great potential, they have a great pronunciation, they learn all the conjugation so fast. You show an object, you tell the name in English, and they remember it forever. But for some reason, they still see English as this distant thing. And I think it's a bit of the mentality, the mindset that live in a large country constructs in you. People in Brazil, it's like I remember going to China and learning English there, and see all the Europeans. I mean, most of them could speak English, even no matter if they were Italian, French, or anything. They just could speak English. And here in Brazil, I've worked as a volunteer in these exchange programs organizations, and I was all the time dealing with foreign students, with Brazilian people who were volunteers who also spoke English. And I was living this bubble that speaking English was just like an obligation, just the basic, like, oh, speak English. And then I've met my wife, who was already an English teacher a long time before I was, and we used to hang out and go to places, and then so people would come to us, approach and say, so you are the telling her, and now telling me too, because I'm an English teacher now, saying, wow, you are the English teachers, you can watch movies without subtitles. Or sometimes we go out with friends and say, oh, these are my English teachers. Can you believe they can watch movies without subtitles? And they say, really? Like, it's a big deal. And I took a long time to, to understand this. Like, what's a big deal? I don't know if you speak French, Italian, or German, that's a big deal, right? Oh, it's French is a romantic language. People say German is complicated to learn, but English, like, the essential, is the basics. So why? And I don't see that much in other countries that I have been visiting. I know that there is this stereotype that American people don't learn another language besides their own, but why that? So I think it's because Brazil is a large country. Maybe it happens in America too. Sorry. So that's the thing. I think because of that, it creates a wall, something blocking the confidence of that person. The person doesn't believe he can really speak English, because speaking English is a big deal. To speak English is something different, something exotic. So when the people stop thinking like that, maybe things will change, and maybe that's one of the big challenges for me as a teacher. It's not actually teach the content, teach the language itself. That's the easy part. Is to make the person speak in English. Like, the person is answering all my questions in English, and then the person has to tell me something like, I don't know, oh, I can't come next class because sorry, I can't come next class because my mother has an appointment with the doctor, and I have to take her there. And since we were already speaking in English, that person has a good English, maybe he's in advanced part of the course, that person switches to Portuguese to tell me that. And funny enough, to tell something like, I can't come next class because I will have to take my mother to the doctor, since she has an appointment. All these words that I just said in these sentences, they are words that we study in the beginning. So that person knows those words. That person knows how to form the sentences and say those words. but they just don't for some reason. Maybe because they're not confident enough, or maybe they are even confident, but they don't think that they should speak English unless they are in a conversation class, unless they are in the classroom, or unless there is some that the situation that person is in is somewhere related to study English and not use English. Or that thing, I am in Brazil, I am Brazilian, you are Brazilian too. Why will we talk in English? But the thing is not why, is why not, right? I mean, I'm Brazilian and I'm making videos in English here. I could be making these videos in Portuguese, make a channel in Portuguese, and talk about all this in Portuguese to Brazilian people. But well, English is my second language, so why not? Maybe I can reach more people talking in English, you know. So that's a thing. This is a psychological thing. Here in Brazil, this is a challenge. I hope that we can change this mindset here. It's a bit difficult, but I hope so. People have this more cosmopolitan mentality, you know, and I didn't see this before. I was an English teacher. I was just someone who could speak English, and I would hang around with other people who could speak English too. But my wife was a teacher. She was hanging around with students, or in other words, people who couldn't speak English. So I was living this bubble, and I realized it. I was like, whoa, look at this. Why people think speaking in English is a big deal. So it's a big challenge. I think many other fellow English teachers out there are trying to break this kind of thought, this way of thinking. And I hope we can do it. I mean, not only about English, but about learning a foreign language, showing people that it's not that impossible, you know. So I hope one day we can sort this out. So these were my views on this subject about building confidence to speak a foreign language that you are studying. Yes, also, yeah, some people, they are so shy to speak when they are in the beginning. Like if they have studied the basic English, or they are like in the intermediary level, and they think that they only can speak in English and talk in English when they are in advanced levels, and that's not true. You learn how to speak speaking, and you learn how to talk talking. So you can know the vocabulary, you can do everything, but if you never go out there and try, no matter which level you are, no matter if you finish a course, no matter if your vocabulary is so advanced, no matter if you can understand anything they say on TV, you still have a hard time trying to speak in the beginning when you talk in English. So that's another thing too. I almost finished the video without pointing that out. So those are yeah, now that's all I have to say about it for now. Those were my views on the subject about being confident to speak English, or any other language for that matter. And so if you like my video, like it and subscribe. If you don't like my video, remember to tell me why you didn't like my video. So that's it, guys. Bye.